Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty big.
Yeah.
It's Donald Trump and a potential second term as president.
Right.
So we've got some excerpts actually from a text called Pasted Text, and it lays out some really interesting potential changes or possibilities, I guess, if Trump were to return to the White House.
Right.
So that's what we're really going to be digging into today.
Right. Okay.
So how would a second term be different, fundamentally different from his first term?
Right. Well, one of the things that jumps out immediately from Pasted Text is the idea of a much more organized and strategic approach.
Oh, interesting.
Like if you think back to 2016, Trump was the outsider. He was shaking things up.
Yeah. He didn't come with...
and now he's potentially coming back with 4 years of experience under his belt.
Right.
A Supreme Court that leans conservative.
Right.
And potentially a Congress that's really ready to support his agenda.
So he's got all the pieces in place?
He's got a lot more of the pieces in place.
Right.
And Pasted Text really highlights this shift in Trump's thinking. For example, he's talking about really focusing on reshaping the federal workforce within the first 100 days of his presidency. So that right there shows a very clear difference.
So less of the unpredictable, off-the-cuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More strategic, more planned.
Okay, interesting.
Much more deliberate in how he's approaching a second term.
So where does Pasted Text suggest we'd really see this?
So one of the big areas where Pasted Text suggests that this would be really apparent is immigration. We're talking potentially really sweeping changes. Like
what?
For example, Pasted Text mentions plans for these expedited deportations of undocumented immigrants.
Okay.
And that could potentially even mean bypassing some of the current legal processes.
Wow, that sounds like it could be incredibly controversial.
It could be really controversial.
Yeah. And what kind of impact could that have?
Well, Pasted Text argues that it could significantly reduce the undocumented population in the U.S.
Right.
But at the same time, it also acknowledges that there's going to be huge potential for legal challenges, widespread criticism.
I mean, I can imagine that would be pretty major.
Even just the cost of deporting that many people, Pasted Text actually estimates that it could be billions of dollars.
Right.
And that it could really disrupt various sectors of the economy.
Right, because there are many industries that rely on that labor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So major implications, not just societal, but economic as well.
Right. And speaking of shaking things up, Pasted Text also talks about potential plans for the federal workforce.
Right.
It mentioned something about replacing career civil servants with loyalists. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Sure, yeah. Basically, what the text suggests is that a second Trump administration would likely prioritize loyalty over experience when it comes to making appointments.
To government positions.
To government positions.
Okay.
So essentially replacing a lot of...
So people who have been there?
Longtime civil servants?
For a long time doing the job.
With people who are more aligned with his ideology.
So potentially people who are loyal?
Yeah.
To Trump versus being loyal to the mission of whatever agency they're.
Yeah, that's the concern that Pasted Text raises.
Right.
And it goes on to suggest that this kind of shift could really impact everything from the effectiveness of government programs to the public's trust in those institutions.
Right. So we've got this picture emerging of this more strategic,
more assertive,
maybe even more assertive Trump in the second term.
Right.
And Pasted Text also mentions a couple of other policy areas specifically where we could see some fireworks. So abortion rights.
Abortion rights.
And trade.
Okay.
So on abortion, Pasted Text argues that with the current makeup of the Supreme Court, a second Trump term could potentially mean the appointment of even more conservative justices, which could pave the way for really significant
changes to abortion access.
Exactly.
Okay. And then knowing Trump's stance on trade,
so, yeah, we could see
Pasted Text is suggesting
things could get pretty interesting on that front as well.
Okay, so what's he saying about that?
So the text highlights Trump's previous use of tariffs, which are basically taxes on imported goods.
Right.
And it's just that he might double down on that strategy.
Okay.
And potentially impose even more tariffs
On who?
On goods coming from countries like China.
Okay. And so what kind of consequences could that have?
Well, pasted text suggests
potentially higher prices for consumers, retaliatory tariffs from other countries, and even damage to the global trading system.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's certainly
a lot to process.
A lot to process.
Yeah.
It seems like one of the big takeaways from pasted text is just that a second term could be much more contentious than his first term.
Yeah, and the text really emphasizes that this could lead to a much more polarized American society, and heightened tensions with other countries.
So it seems like, based on what we've talked about, a potential second Trump term could really change things for American politics and society.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's a lot to process.
It is.
But I think,
What questions does this raise for you?
Yeah, what questions does this raise for you as a listener?
What are you thinking about?
Yeah, what are you thinking about?
How might these shifts impact your life?
Yeah, your community.
Your future.
Keep exploring these questions. Keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Of course.